This makes no sense at first. Japan eats rice almost every day, noodles are everywhere, convenience stores sell food on nearly every corner, and yet obesity in Japan remains dramatically lower than in countries like the US. So what are they doing differently? Because it isn't just genetics, and it definitely isn't because everyone is living in the gym. In fact, gym memberships in Japan are surprisingly low compared to many Western countries. So how can a population that eats carbs daily and doesn't revolve around the gym still stay lean? The answer is much more practical than people think. And once you see it, you start realizing why so many people struggle with fat loss even when they feel like they're doing everything right. In this video, I'm going to break down the habits that help people in Japan stay lean without extreme diets, without cutting carbs, and without depending on the gym. And more importantly, which of those habits you can realistically apply to your own routine. So what exactly is happening there? Because if the answer was simply discipline, then countries like the United States, where people spend billions every year on diets, gyms, and weight loss programs should be getting leaner too, but the opposite is happening. In the US, obesity rates have continued to climb for decades. Meanwhile, in Japan, obesity remains one of the lowest among developed countries. So clearly something about the daily structure of life there creates a different outcome. Most of it comes from a handful of everyday habits that quietly shape how people eat, move, and structure their day. And here's the important part. You don't need to move to Tokyo to start using some of these. Many of them are surprisingly simple adjustments in your daily life. Individually, they seem small, but together they create a system where staying lean becomes much easier without constant effort. And the first habit actually starts much earlier in life than most people realize, and it has to do with something most people never think about: taste. In many Western countries, especially in the United States, children grow up surrounded by extremely sweet and heavily processed foods. Breakfast cereals packed with sugar, desserts after almost every meal, drinks that taste more like candy than food. Over time, the brain adapts to that level of sweetness, and when that happens, normal food starts to feel bland. Fruit no longer tastes sweet enough. Simple meals feel unsatisfying, and processed food quietly becomes the standard. Japan approaches this very differently. School meals there are not dominated by ultra-processed food. They are typically planned by nutritionists and built around simple foods like rice, vegetables, fish, soups, and other whole ingredients prepared fresh each day. Because of that, children grow up developing a taste for food that isn't overloaded with sugar, salt, and artificial flavors. And that difference has a powerful long-term effect. When your baseline taste expectation is lower in sugar and additives, real food becomes naturally satisfying. Portions don't need to be massive. Cravings for ultra-processed snacks become less constant, and maintaining a healthy weight becomes much easier, because your appetite is no longer being pushed by hyper-engineered foods designed to make you eat more. This doesn't mean you need to recreate Japanese school lunches at home, but the principle behind it is extremely useful. The more your daily diet shifts towards simple, minimally processed foods, the more your taste gradually recalibrates over time. And once that happens, many of the foods that used to feel normal start tasting overwhelmingly sweet. Beyond that, something interesting follows. The constant pull toward overeating begins to weaken, but taste is only one piece of the puzzle. The next habit change is something else that has a massive influence on body weight, portion size. Over the past few decades, portions in places like the United States have slowly become enormous. Large plates, oversized meals, and the idea that getting more for your money is always better. But over time, the brain adapts to those larger portions, and what used to feel like a full meal starts to feel normal. Japan works differently. Meals are usually served in smaller bowls and plates, often divided into several small portions instead of one large dish. Rice in one bowl, vegetables in another, fish in another, maybe a soup on the side. Visually, the meal still looks complete and satisfying, but the total amount of food is often much smaller than what people are used to in Western countries. And that simple change has a powerful effect. When portions are naturally smaller, the body has more time to register fullness before overeating happens. You still feel satisfied, but the total calories tend to be lower without needing constant self-control. Now combine that with another habit that makes a big difference. Many people today eat almost constantly throughout the day. A snack here, something small there, another drink with calories, something sweet later. Individually, those things seem harmless, but across an entire day, they add up. In Japan, meals tend to be more structured. People there eat proper meals, and between those meals, there is often simply nothing. They generally just snack far less. That creates natural breaks where the body can actually finish digesting and regulating hunger signals instead of constantly processing new food. But there's another interesting reason why this is easier to maintain there. The food environment itself is different. Even convenience food often looks very different from what you would find in many Western countries. Instead of shelves dominated by ultra-processed snacks, many quick meals are built around simple combinations like rice, fish, vegetables, or soup. So when people need something quick, the default option is often still a real meal instead of a bag of processed snacks. And that completely changes daily eating patterns. But there's another small habit that makes all of this even more effective: eating speed. In Japan, meals tend to be slower and more deliberate. People take smaller bites, pause between them, and spend more time actually experiencing the meal. That matters because the body doesn't register fullness instantly. It usually takes around 20 minutes for the brain to fully recognize that enough food has been eaten. When meals are rushed, it's easy to eat far past that point before the signal even arrives. But when eating naturally slows down, the body has time to catch up, which means people often feel satisfied with less food without consciously trying to restrict anything. And then there's one more factor that many people underestimate: daily movement. In Japan, movement isn't always something scheduled at the gym. It's simply part of everyday life. Walking to train stations, climbing stairs, commuting on foot, carrying groceries, moving through cities designed for pedestrians. Those movements seem small, but when they happen consistently every day, they quietly increase how much energy the body uses without requiring a dedicated workout session. And when you combine smaller portions, fewer snacks, slower eating, and more natural movement throughout the day, you start to see how the system works. Staying lean becomes less about extreme effort and more about how daily life is structured. Which brings me to something important I learned from my own experience with weight loss. For most of my life, I struggled with my weight. At my heaviest, I was close to 300 pounds, and like many people, I kept trying the same things over and over again. Hard diets, strict plans, pushing myself in the gym, trying to rely on motivation and willpower. Sometimes it worked for a while, but it rarely lasted. What finally changed things for me was realizing that the problem wasn't just discipline. My body simply didn't respond well to extreme diets and short bursts of motivation. Things only started working when my daily routine stopped fighting my biology. And if you want a simple starting point to build that kind of structure, I put together a short free guide called 7 Steps that got me out of obesity. Inside it, I explained the basic framework that helped me go from 300 pounds to where I am today, without extreme diets and without turning my life into a constant battle with food. And if you're not sure what your body type actually is, I also show a simple trick inside the guide that helps you figure it out in seconds. Because once you understand how your body tends to respond to food and training, it becomes much easier to choose strategies that actually work for you, especially if you have a high tendency to gain weight like I do. You can download it for free through the link in the description. Now, coming back to the bigger picture, the reason people in Japan tend to stay lean is not because they have some secret genetic advantage or superhuman discipline. It's because many parts of everyday life push behavior in a direction that makes overeating less likely. Portions are smaller, meals are more structured, eating happens slowly, movement is built into the day instead of treated as a separate task. None of those things look crazy on their own, but when they happen consistently, day after day, they create a system where maintaining a healthy body weight just becomes natural. And that's the real lesson here. Fat loss doesn't always come from doing something extreme. Often it comes from small adjustments in your daily life, the kind that makes better choices easier and constant overeating harder. And once those adjustments are in place, fat loss stops feeling like a battle of willpower and starts becoming something your routine naturally supports.